A big Pomona welcome on your feet or on your knees for Mr. Mel Stuart. So let me start with the idea for this movie. Isn't it true that your daughter literally came up to you one day with Roald Dahl's book and said, "Daddy, film this book." Is this true?
The way the movie came about, for you young kids in the audience, was that my daughter Madeline, who was 10 years old, came up to me at dinner and said, "Daddy, I just read a wonderful book." And I said, "What was the name of the book?" And she said it was called Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. I said, "Okay, that's fine." She said, "No, Daddy, I want you to make this into a movie." And I said, "Madeline, it's not that easy to make a movie. Just because you want to make it into a movie doesn't mean it can be done." And she said, "Daddy, I don't care. I want you to make it into a movie." And I said, all right, I'll read the book and we'll see what it's about. So I read the book, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, and I thought it was a nice children's story, but it's difficult to make a children's movie these days. But what happened was that the man I worked with, David Wolpa, was going to Quaker Oats 2 weeks from then to sell a documentary. And when he went there, by sheer luck, by sheer fortune, one of the executives at the Quaker Oats company said, "What have you got about chocolate? We want to make a chocolate bar, a Quaker Oats chocolate bar." And David Wolper said, "I have the greatest story in the world. It's all about a man in a chocolate waterfall, blah, blah, blah." He had never read the book. But he was a very good speaker and could convince people of things like this. And Quaker Oats gave us money to make the movie. And that's the way it all came about. Because of my daughter, Madeline, who, by the way, is in the movie. There's a young girl who answers the question of the teacher with the words, "about 100." And that's all I would let her do in the movie because she was a very bad actress. But my son, Peter, who was a good actor, he was Winkleman, the little boy that comes in and out talking to the professor and saying, "The factory's open, the factory's closed," and he was a natural actor. Unfortunately, my daughter Madeline wasn't.
And now they're both grown and very successful on their own as children. The book by Roald Dahl turned into a screenplay by Roald Dahl, but actually, even though the real writer is not credited, Roald Dahl is not responsible for the final script for the movie. Tell us how that took place.
Roald Dahl, the man that wrote the book, is a very, very, very good writer. But unfortunately, he didn't understand that you can't film a book. You have to film a screenplay, which is a different way. You have to take the book and make it so that it would work for the film. So he wrote 4 scripts, and it still wasn't right. And there was a young man working in my office that will inspire all the young people here. He was 25 years old, and I said to him, "I like you. I like what you've been doing as a text researcher, working with things." I said, "You're going to come to Munich in Germany, where we're filming the picture, and you're going to look at Roald Dahl's script and fix it up and make it more movie-like." And we took him to Munich, and we locked him in a hotel room all day long. He could only come out to eat at night. And for 2 weeks, he worked away at the picture. And the version that you see has a lot of this young man's work in it. And he was very exhausted after 2 weeks of doing this. And he said, "I'd like to go home." I said, "Fine, you can go home." And he went home exhausted. And I was shooting a few weeks later. And I was looking, Gene Wilder was in the Wonka Vader, and the end of the picture was coming. And as it came, I turned the last page of the script, and it said, "Grandpa said yippee." And I said, "Oh my God, I can't end this picture with Grandpa saying yippee. That would be terrible. Where's the young man?" And they said he went back to Maine to rest in a cottage. He was so exhausted. I said, "I don't care. We're not going to finish the picture till we have a proper last line." And they said, "But there were no faxes in those days. There were no computers in those days. You've got to realize we were out without all those things." And I said, "I don't care what we have to do. Get him. I won't finish the picture." So they called him on the phone, and by luck, he was there. And I said to him, his name was David, I said, "David, I need the last line of the picture." He said, "Well, I'll think about it and I'll get back to you." I said, "No, we're shooting with Gene Wilder on the set. We have the Wonka Vader. The picture has to be finished. I want an answer like the song in the picture. I want it now." And he said, "How long do I have?" And I said, "You have 5 minutes and you've got to give me the last line of the picture." Now, I don't know how many of you remember the last line of the picture, but if you were this young man, think for just 10 seconds, what would you have said to me when I asked you, write the last line of the picture? See? And if you don't remember the last line of the picture, you realize what a burden it was. So I waited and I looked at my watch and I said, "You have 5 minutes," and a minute and a half went by and David came back to his phone and said, "Okay, here's the last line. Mr. Wonka says to Charlie, 'Do you know what happens to someone that gets everything they want in life, Charlie?' And Charlie says, 'No, Mr. Wonka.' And Mr. Wonka says, 'He lives happily ever after.'" Now, for a young man to come up with the last line of every fairy tale and put it into the story was remarkable, and it's a great last line. And I said to him, "Okay, David, you can go back to your cottage now." But the next picture I did, he wrote for me a screenplay, and then right after that, he wrote a very famous movie called The Omen. So he had that great talent for being a screenwriter, and that's the end of that story.
And that was, yeah. That was,
Oh, by the way, his name is David Seltzer, so if you ever see his name, you'll know he started with Willy Wonka.
And they did go to Germany to shoot. They started planning the picture just about 40 years ago, and then they went to Germany to shoot. And you were under David Wahlberg's organization. And for anyone who doesn't know, David Wahlberg, who produced Willy Wonka, and you'll see his name very shortly, passed away 12 days ago at the age of 82. And let me ask you this: besides the things we talked about, there's a few other changes from the book, and one of them notable is, in the book, they're the little black pygmies. When they came finally on the screen in your film, they're the Oompa Loompas with a very distinct look. How did that look come about for the Oompa Loompas?
All right. I was about to start the film. It had just been announced, and I hadn't thought about the film very much. I mean, the actual details. I knew that we had the rights to the book. We were going to make it. And a group of black actors came to my office, rather well known, and they said to me, "Mr. Stewart, you know about those people in the book, the Oompa Loompas?" I said, "Well, I haven't thought about it very much." They said, "Do you know that in the book they're drawn," and the book was made in 1964, "they were drawn as black pygmies. The Oompa Loompas were black pygmies in the book." And I said, "No, I haven't thought about it."